The film starts with Czech astronaut Jakub, who has been in space for 189 days. It begins as he dreams about his first kiss with his wife, Lenka, as he walks into the water. Despite the dream being quite fantastic, he wakes up. Jakub has been on a solo space journey for half a year and is now near Jupiter. He explains that his journey is to look into a strange cloud of dust and bits, known as Chopra, located past Jupiter. A young girl named Anna interviews Jakub and calls him the loneliest man in the world, because he is the farthest person from Earth than anyone else in history. Jakub denies feeling lonely, but his face tells a different story. His sleep is interrupted by a noisy toilet. He asks for it to be repaired, but his request is denied because fixing the broken cameras is the priority. Peter, the repairman, checked if Jakub was asleep. Jakub replied that he was struggling to sleep. Jakub inquired about Lenka, who hadn't contacted him for a while, but Peter hasn't heard from her either. Jakub's superior, Commissioner Tuma, viewed a video message from Lenka to Jakub. In the video, Lenka discussed her plans to divorce Jakub. Tuma chose not to show Jakub the video because Jakub was already under a lot of stress and was even taking Dimorcum, a sleeping pill to help his insomnia temporarily. One night, Jakub was suddenly awakened and saw something moving under his skin when he looked in the mirror. Something moved up to Jakub's nose, and a spider leg appeared before retreating. Jakub groaned as he tried to remove the spider from his mouth. Then, he woke up from the nightmare, gasping and squeezing his mouth. The next day, Jakub finally understood and started working on the chopper sample collection simulation. Jakub reached out to Peter, who was worried about the broken cameras on the ship, and asked him to send someone to his house to speak with Lenka, who hadn't been calling him. He sat before Check Connect until the screen started flicking, and an unfamiliar voice appeared. Jakub asked who the voice belonged to but had yet to receive an answer. He contacted Peter and asked if Check Connect had been hacked, to which Peter said no. Peter then told Jakub that Lenka was visiting her mother for a few days. Jakub was awakened by a thud somewhere on the ship. Jakub went to the noise source and saw a giant alien spider staring back at him. He shut the door and asked Peter if the toilet had a hidden camera. Peter confirmed there was a camera for safety, but it wasn't working. Peter reopened the toilet door and drifted away as the spider left the room. The spider spoke in the same voice Jakub had heard on Check Connect and assured Jakub it meant no harm. However, a scared Jakub went to the airlock, put on his suit, and asked Peter to release the decontaminant in an attempt to kill the spider. Peter was confused because Jakub didn't tell him about the alien spider, but he followed Jakub's instructions. Jakub waited for the decontamination process to finish. He had a strange feeling and suddenly remembered a memory of Lenka. Still unaware of what was happening, Peter suggested that Jakub visits a psychiatrist when he returned home. He explained that being alone in space for a long time can harm one's mental health. Jakub re-encountered the spider and decided to communicate with it. He discovered that the spider had been journeying to the far reaches of the solar system when it spotted the ship. The spider had always been interested in humans and had studied them extensively. However, despite its knowledge, it couldn't understand the human in front of it. The alien spider claimed it only boarded the ship without permission because it sensed Jakub's loneliness. Jakub, unsure if the spider was real or just a hallucination, tried to touch it but was warned not to, as its species considered touching a violation. Jakub quickly went to sleep, consuming a lot of Dimorcum, hoping to convince himself that this was all just a dream. He dreamt about Lenka and woke up gasping. Even when Jakub was awake, he felt like he was still dreaming. He felt as if he was observing himself arguing with Lenka, and was puzzled about what was happening. He saw the spider and questioned if it was the one causing this. It turns out that the alien spider can enter his mind and read his thoughts, dreams, and memories. The alien explained that it seemed like Jakub's wife was distancing herself, and the alien just wanted to help Jakub with his emotional restlessness. Meanwhile, Lenka was discussing her big decision with her mother and her desire to move to a specific place in the country for single pregnant women. Lenka confessed to her mother about her love for Jakub and his ambition, but she felt like she was being ignored. For the days that the spider stayed on the spacecraft, Jakub remained unfriendly and suspicious of the creature. Jakub found the spider again in the room where he first saw it, sleeping and hugging the humming tube that attracted it. This entertained Jakub. He decided to be a little more open with the spider and even named it Hannes when he found out the spider didn't have a name. Hannes was the name of a man Jakub's father used to talk about, the man who built the astronomical clock in Prague that tracked the movements of stars and planets. Hannes became Jakub's friend, and Jakub felt less lonely with Hannes around. While discussing the meaning of an opera song called Rusalka, Hannes made Jakub recall when he and Lenka fell in love. Jakub looked sad and asked Hannes to stop messing with him. One night, Jakub woke up suddenly, overwhelmed by memories from his childhood. He spoke to Hannes, and the spider admitted that it had entered Jakub's thoughts, but stopped when it felt uncomfortable due to Jakub's guilt. Hannes asked about his past, and Jakub shared the painful memory of his father's death. His father was a member of a communist party and served as an informant. Despite being a good man, his father did terrible things, and witnessing his father's death deeply traumatized Jakub. By accepting the solo mission, Jakub hoped to make amends for his father's wrongdoings. Hannes sensed this and advised Jakub to concentrate more on his pregnant wife and strive to be a good father, something his father wasn't. Commissioner Tuma visited Lenka to discuss the video message she had sent. She confessed that she didn't send the video to Jakub because her role was to protect Jakub, and she knew that seeing the message could harm his mental health. Tuma wanted to understand why Lenka divorced her husband and left him while he was so far from Earth. Lenka didn't explain. Before Tuma left, she reminded Lenka of when she asked Jakub why they still called each other even when they only shared silence. Tuma pointed out that the silence is the point. The silence shared between Jakub and Lenka during their calls was okay, because what mattered was that they were silent together. The Ferta collection simulation was completed, and Jakub approached the Chopra cloud. Jakub saw small images of the Chopra cloud inside the ship. He tried to grab them, but couldn't. Hannes explained that it was the original grain, and nothing could capture or contain it. Jakub observed as the grains exited the spacecraft through the window. He called control to report what he had seen, but there was no response. Jakub realized he had lost communication with control. Jakub and Hannes watched as they approached the beginning. Jakub was worried about what would happen next, but Hannes reassured him that it was difficult to explain, and that they might experience the beginning together. If you think Hannes is a great partner to watch the beginning with, subscribe to the channel. Hannes kept trying to discuss Lenka with Jakub, but Jakub seemed distant when his wife was on the topic. So Hannes showed him what happened to his wife in his absence. Jakub, being ambitious, overlooked his pregnant wife. Lenka was previously pregnant with their first child, but she lost the pregnancy. They lost their first baby, and Jakub wasn't there. Lenka was in pain, and Jakub wasn't there. And he didn't want to be there either because his dream didn't include Lenka. Jakub became emotional when Hannes asked him if the pain his decisions caused was worth it. Jakub kept working, and Hannes was disappointed that his human friend was still overly focused on his mission. Hannes showed Jakub another memory when Lenka cried while expressing her pride in Jakub, but Hannes made Jakub see the truth behind those tears. Lenka might have been proud, but she was also hurt because Jakub was distancing himself from her due to his ambitions. Hannes made Jakub realize his mistakes and expressed his disappointment. Jakub had become selfish and didn't even try to understand his wife. Jakub's loneliness was his own doing. He chose himself over building connections with those who mattered, and now he was dealing with the consequences. Hannes was so disappointed in Jakub that he decided to leave. Jakub reached out to Hannes to prevent him from leaving, but Hannes became angry, held him down, and warned him before leaving. Jakub begged for Hannes to return. Hannes's departure caused Jakub pain, making him feel lonelier than ever. Jakub cried as he finally realized his mistakes. Jakub repaired the communications and contacted Peter again, assuring him everything was okay. He firmly instructed Peter to visit Lenka and assist him in reconnecting with his wife. Peter did as Jakub requested and allowed Lenka to hear what Jakub wanted to say. Jakub apologized for his actions, neglecting Lenka, and living his life for the wrong reasons. He expressed his desire to start over and be a better person before ending the call. I hope Jakub can pull this off to get a second chance with Lenka. When night fell, Hannes returned, which comforted Jakub. If you're glad, Hannes came back. Subscribe to the channel. Hannes didn't want Jakub to face the beginning alone, so he returned to his human friend. Jakub noticed that Hannes was struggling to breathe and asked what was wrong. Hannes explained that when the Garamts, the name Hannes uses for the enemies that destroyed his species, came to wipe out the entire tribe, Hannes escaped, but it was too late. Jakub was upset by this, and for the first time, Hannes let go and hugged his human friend. Now this is a beautiful moment. Jakub was about to enter the Chopra cloud, and the event was being shown nationwide. Commissioner Tuma stated how proud the Czech Republic was of Jakub for surpassing South Korea and being the first to explore the purple ghost in the sky. Jakub finally entered the Chopra cloud and launched Ferta to collect samples, but there was a disruption. Surprisingly, Jakub saw Hannes gasping and floating away from the spacecraft. Jakub ignored the control team because he was concerned about Hannes and wanted to save him. At the same time, the control team was in a panic due to a malfunction with Ferda. They recorded many errors and instructed Jakub to cancel the mission, warning him of the extreme danger. Jakub ignored them. He was more concerned about rescuing his friend Hannes than listening to their warnings. Jakub went to the airlock, put on the EMU, and told Peter he was leaving the spacecraft. Peter tried to persuade him not to go. When he reached Hannes, he hugged him and asked if the spider was okay. Hannes praised Jakub for his courage in saving him, but warned that the Garumps would soon weaken him enough to consume his flesh. They had only a short time before Hannes dies. They kept drifting, observing the Chopra cloud. Jakub remembered a time from his childhood when he almost drowned. Hannes comforted Jakub, assuring him it wasn't the end, and guided him into the center of the Chopra cloud. There, Jakub learned everything about himself and the universe. The Chopra cloud was not just the beginning but also the end. It held Jakub's past and future. It contained every aspect of Jakub's life: himself, Lenka, Hannes, every sorrow, and every joy. It contained everything. Jakub was amazed by how little he understood about the universe, and he finally remembered what was most important and what he truly desired. He remembered the times when he fell in love with Lenka and found himself falling even more in love. Seeing that his task was complete and Jakub had finally learned, Hannes said his final words. Hannes started and ended in the Chopra cloud, but it wasn't the end for Jakub yet. He still had a life to return to. He just needed to embrace the silence. Jakub watched as Hannes slowly turned into tiny particles before completely vanishing, and then he gazed into the light in silence. "You will be deeply missed, Hannes. Thank you for the life lessons." On Earth, Lenka was waiting for any update about Jakub while looking at the purple cloud in the sky with a smile. Jakub, in a spacesuit, wades through a clear stream. Above him, on a log, Lenka sits in a mermaid costume, asking him for a kiss. Her face is the last thing he sees for a moment before he spots the lights of a South Korean ship that rescues him. Later, she got a call and heard a woman speaking in Korean when she answered. Then she heard Jakub's voice. It ends with this realistic yet fantastic film, showing an astronaut who had to be millions of kilometers away from his wife and listen to a speech from an alien spider to realize that family is the most important thing in his life. We can only hope he will regain his sense of purpose. The moral of the story is that sometimes we all find ourselves in a situation where we lose the sense of our family and our loved ones because we are chasing dreams or some purpose. The funny thing is that all of these things are right in front of us, and that's what has to be cherished. This one is for you, Hannes. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.